23 nannies, 6 weeks. None lasted more than 48 hours. She lasted 48 seconds before those same two girls stopped throwing porcelain plates and ran to her like she was the first person who'd ever seen them as children instead of problems. Their father, a man who'd built a tech empire before age 30 and kept his penthouse like a fortress, stared at her as she just performed the impossible. "No one reaches them," he said, voice barely above a whisper. "No one." She shrugged, exhausted from a double shift and running on 3 hours of sleep. Did anyone try speaking to them in their mother's language? That question changed everything. It also made her the most important person in that house. If you believe that struggling mothers deserve a fighting chance, that children shouldn't be labeled as broken just because they're grieving, hit that subscribe button for Heartspeak Stories right now. Only people who write off single moms trying to survive won't sub. Her name was Nicole Patterson, 31 years old, mother of a determined 6-year-old daughter named Zoe. They used to be comfortable, not wealthy, but comfortable. Then Zoe's father left. No explanation, no forwarding address, no child support payments. Just gone like their 8-year marriage had meant nothing at all. Then the layoffs came. Then the medical bills from Zoe's asthma attacks started piling up. Suddenly, comfort became terrifying. Nicole was working morning shifts at a coffee shop in Gangnam, pulling espresso shots until her wrists ached and her feet went numb. She was doing freelance translation work at night, Korean to English, English to Korean, squinting at her laptop screen until 2 a.m. She was sleeping for 4 hours, if she was lucky. She was stretching every meal to feed Zoe first, and still finding eviction warnings slipped under her apartment door like death sentences. Zoe needed new shoes. The electricity was about to be shut off. Nicole's visa status was becoming complicated without stable employment, and she was so tired she sometimes forgot which language she was thinking in. So when she saw the listing at 3 in the morning, eyes burning from another translation deadline, she didn't hesitate. Private households seeking live-in childcare specialists, bilingual Korean-English essential, exceptional compensation, immediate placement. No details about the family, no mention of how many children, no location until you pass 3 rounds of background checks. Nicole didn't care. She submitted her application before she could second-guess herself. She didn't know the position was at the Kang residence, a penthouse in Cheongdam-dong that occupied an entire floor. She didn't know her employer would be Kang Jae-won, the tech genius who'd revolutionized mobile banking across Asia before his 30th birthday. She didn't know he was raising twin daughters who'd been expelled from 4 international preschools. She didn't know about the 23 nannies who'd quit, some in tears, some without even collecting their final paychecks. She didn't know about the darkness that lived in that beautiful home. She didn't know anything. She just knew she was 3 weeks from homelessness, and Zoe deserved better. The interview was scheduled for 7 a.m. Nicole had worked her coffee shop shift from 5 to 6:30, rushed home to make sure Zoe was ready for her neighbor to take her to school, and arrived at the building exhausted, desperate, and probably still smelling like espresso and steamed milk. The woman who answered the penthouse door was Mrs. Lim, the household manager. She wore an immaculate navy suit and looked at Nicole with something that might have been sympathy or maybe just exhaustion. "Miss Patterson, you're here for the childcare position." "Yes, ma'am." "Your Korean is fluent?" "Yes. I lived in Busan for 6 years before moving to Seoul." Mrs. Lim paused, studying her. "And you have experience with challenging children?" Nicole blinked. The listing hadn't said challenging. It said it was a specialist. I have a 6-year-old daughter, and I worked as an English teacher at a hagwon in Busan for 4 years. Does that count? Mrs. Lim's expression shifted. It might. More than the credentials of the last 23 candidates. She stepped aside. Before you enter, I need to be transparent. Mr. Kang has 5-year-old twin daughters. They're spirited is the wrong word. They're in pain, and they express it destructively. 23 nannies, 6 weeks, none lasting more than 48 hours. Nicole should have walked away, but exceptional compensation meant she could keep Zoe in school. It meant she could renew her visa. It meant she could finally stop drowning in bills and fear. I can try, she said quietly. That's when she heard the crash. Not an accident. A deliberate destruction crash. The sound of something expensive being thrown against a wall with intent. Mrs. Lim closed her eyes. That would be the twins. She led Nicole through the penthouse. Despite the chaos echoing from somewhere deeper inside, the space was breathtaking. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Seoul's glittering skyline. Minimalist furniture that looked like it belonged in architectural magazines. Abstract art on walls, painted in soft grays and whites. And in the middle of all this carefully curated perfection, 2 identical 5-year-old girls were systematically destroying their playroom. One was ripping pages out of books, slowly, methodically, creating a paper snowstorm around her feet. One was throwing wooden blocks at the wall, hard enough to leave dents, hard enough to show she wanted to leave dents. Their faces were identical. Dark hair, sharp eyes, expressions twisted with something that looked less like misbehavior and more like anguish. Girls, Mrs. Lim's voice was firm. We have a visitor. Stop this immediately. They didn't even glance at her. They'd heard this before, from 23 other adults who'd tried to control them. We've tried everything, Mrs. Lim said to Nicole, defeated. Strict nannies, gentle nannies, child psychologists, behavioral specialists. Nothing works. They either break the caretakers or the caretakers can't manage them. Nicole watched the destruction. 2 small girls testing every boundary, exceeding every limit, screaming without words for someone to understand what they couldn't articulate. And she thought about what probably no one else had considered. Have you tried speaking to them in Korean? Mrs. Lim frowned. They're fluent in English. Mr. Kang insisted they be raised bilingual. English is the primary language in this household. But what was their mother's language? The question landed like a stone in still water. Mrs. Lim's face went carefully blank. Their mother passed away 18 months ago. She was Korean. She spoke to them primarily in Korean until she died, Nicole finished quietly. And then everyone switched to English. Mr. Kang thought it would be easier, less triggering for them. Or more isolating, Nicole said. She didn't wait for permission. She walked toward the twins, and both girls froze. The one ripping books looked up. The one throwing blocks turned. Both held their respective weapons, eyes narrowed, daring this new adult to yell at them like all the others. Nicole crouched down to their level and spoke in gentle, clear Korean. 안녕하세요. 제 이름은 니콜이에요. 너희 이름은 뭐예요? Hello, my name is Nicole. What are your names? The effect was immediate. Both girls' eyes went wide. The blocks dropped. The book pages fluttered to the floor. One of them took a shaky breath. Jonan suayeo, she whispered in Korean. I'm Sua. Jonan soayeo, the other said, voice barely audible. I'm Seoa. Nicole felt her heart crack. These weren't wild children. These were children who'd lost their mother and then lost her language, lost the sound of words, that felt like home. Banga Woyo Sua Sioa, Nicole said softly. Nice to meet you, Sua Sioa. Neohi Himdalusji. You've been having a hard time, haven't you? Both girls stared at her. Most adults yelled. Most adults tried to overpower them. Most adults didn't last a day. This woman was speaking their mother's language, the language of bedtime stories and lullabies, and the last "I love you" they'd ever heard. Sua started crying first. Not loud, just tears streaming down her face. Then Sioa. Then both of them were running toward Nicole, wrapping their small arms around her neck, like she was the first safe thing they'd touched in 18 months. And that's when the front door opened. Mrs. Lim straightened immediately. The air in the penthouse changed. Nicole looked up and saw him. Kang Jae-won, tall, lean, wearing a black suit with no tie, sharp features, exhausted eyes. He looked like a success. He looked like control. He looked like a man who'd conquered every challenge in his professional life and was being destroyed by the two small humans currently clinging to a stranger. His eyes traveled from the destroyed playroom to the scattered books to the blocks on the floor. Then to Nicole, kneeling on the ground with her daughters wrapped around her. Who are you? His English was perfect, accent barely present. Nicole Patterson. I'm here for the childcare position. His gaze dropped to Sua and Sioa. They weren't letting go. They were holding Nicole like they were afraid she'd disappear. He seemed unable to finish the sentence. They're hugging you. Yes, sir. He stared like he was witnessing something scientifically impossible. No one calms them down, he said quietly. 23 professionals. Credentials, experience, everything. No one reaches them. Nicole met his gaze. Did anyone try speaking their mother's language? The look on his face told Nicole everything she needed to know. He could build companies. He could revolutionize industries. But he had no idea how to reach his own daughters. If you believe children deserve to be heard in the language of their hearts, subscribe to Heart Speak Stories right now. Only people who think kids should just adapt and get over their grief won't hit that button. Comment on what language speaks to your soul. Let's see who's really here. Because what happened next in that penthouse would change 4 lives forever. And Nicole wasn't ready for any of it. Jae-won was still staring when Sioa tugged at Nicole's sleeve. Nicole Eoni, she whispered. Nicole Unni, big sister Nicole. Urirangati iseo julreo? Will you stay with us? Nicole glanced at Mrs. Lim, then at Jae-won. Neither spoke, so she answered in Korean. Gureo, o늘은 여기 있을게요. Yes, I'll be here today. Both twins immediately sat down, one on each side of her. Sua leaned against her shoulder. Sioa took her hand. The destruction stopped. The chaos evaporated. 2 little girls, who'd terrorized 23 trained professionals, simply sat quietly. Jae-won didn't move. He stood frozen in his own entryway, watching his daughters be gentle for what looked like the first time since his wife's funeral. They've bitten nannies, he said, almost to himself. They've thrown furniture. They screamed until they made themselves sick. I don't... He stopped. I tried again. I don't understand what you did. I spoke to them like they were people, Nicole said simply, and I used the words that sound like their mother. Later that afternoon, Mrs. Lim pulled Nicole into the kitchen while the twins napped. You should understand something about Mr. Kang, she said carefully. Nicole waited. His wife died suddenly. Aneurysm. No warning. She was reading bedtime stories to the girls, and then she was gone. The twins found her. Nicole's heart shattered. They were the ones who found her. Mrs. Lim nodded. 3 years old, screaming for their Uma to wake up. Mr. Kang was at his office. By the time he got home, the paramedics were already there. The girls haven't been the same since. And he stopped speaking Korean in the house. He thought it would help them move forward. Let them forget the trauma. Instead, it cut them off from the last piece of her they had left, Nicole finished. Her throat was tight. Those weren't wild children. They were children trapped in grief, with no language to express it. No wonder they were destroying everything. They were trying to make the outside world match the inside devastation. Nicole's first full day in that penthouse was exhausting, but not because of the twins. It was exhausting because they wouldn't leave her side. She cleaned up the playroom. They handed her blocks and books, asking her questions in soft Korean. She made them lunch. They sat at the table and ate without throwing food for the first time in weeks. She told them a story about a brave turtle and two dolphin sisters who protected the ocean. They listened like she was giving them oxygen after years underwater. By dinner, both twins were sitting so close to Nicole that their chairs touched hers, and she realized something profound. They didn't need discipline. They needed a connection. They needed someone who understood that grief doesn't speak English just because it's more convenient. Jae-won watched her all day, not in an uncomfortable way, not even in a romantic way, more like he was observing a phenomenon he couldn't quite explain, with data and logic. That evening, he found her in the hallway after she'd tucked the girls into bed. "Why haven't you quit?" he asked. Nicole turned. "Excuse me?" "Everyone quits. The tantrums, the violence, the chaos. It breaks even experienced professionals. But you're still here. You don't look broken." She leaned against the wall, tired but steady. "Because they're not trying to break anyone. They're trying to be understood." "In Korean." "In their mother's language," she corrected gently. "There's a difference." Something shifted in his expression. Pain, maybe, or recognition. "My wife spoke to them in Korean from birth," he said quietly. "English was for the outside world. Korean was for home, for us. I thought, after she died, I thought removing the trigger would help them heal. Instead, it removed the bridge to her memory." He looked at her, really looked. "You sound like you understand loss." "My husband left 2 years ago," Nicole admitted. "My daughter still sometimes calls for him at night. I can't take that pain away. I can only witness it." "Witness it," he repeated. "That's all?" "Sometimes that's everything." Silence settled between them. Then Jae-won spoke again, voice rougher. "I don't know how to do this. The parenting without her. Any of it without her. I can code software and build platforms and manage teams of hundreds, but I can't make my daughters stop hurting." Nicole felt the weight of his confession. "I don't know how to pay rent for some months," she said. "I don't know how to explain to my daughter why her father doesn't call. But I keep going because giving up isn't an option. Your daughters need you to keep going too." He looked at her then, not like an employer looking at an employee, like one drowning person recognizing another. "How much would it take," he asked slowly, "for you to stay? Not just today, permanently. Move in. Bring your daughter, whatever you need." Nicole's breath caught. "Mr. Kang." "Jae-won," he interrupted. "If you're going to save my daughters, we're past formalities. I have a 6-year-old, Zoe. She'd be living here too." "Good. Sua and Seoa need friends. They need to be normal." He named a salary that made Nicole's knees weak. 3 times what she'd make in a year at the coffee shop. "I'll cover your visa fees," he continued. "Private room for you and your daughter. Medical insurance. Zoe can attend the same international school as the twins. Whatever you need to say, yes. Nicole thought about the eviction notices, about Zoe's medical bills, about working 2 jobs and still drowning, about the chance to give her daughter stability. I need to talk to Zoe first, she said. Children should have a say in decisions that affect their lives. The corner of his mouth lifted, almost a smile. You really do treat children like people. Radical concept, I know. That night, Nicole went home to their tiny apartment in Seongdong-gu. Zoe was already asleep, curled up with her worn, stuffed rabbit. Nicole sat on the edge of the bed and gently shook her daughter awake. Baby, I need to talk to you about something important. Zoe rubbed her eyes. Did we get evicted? The fact that her 6-year-old knew that word broke Nicole's heart. No, sweetie, the opposite. I got a job, a really good job, but it means we'd have to move. Move where? To a penthouse in Cheongdam-dong. I'd be taking care of 2 little girls who need help. You'd go to a new school, a really good school. Zoe was quiet, processing. Would we have our own room? Yes. Would I have to leave my school? Yes, but the new school has art classes every day and a playground with swings. Zoe loved swings. She thought about it with the seriousness only a 6-year-old facing major life changes could muster. Are the little girls nice? They're sad, Nicole said honestly. Their mommy died. They're angry and scared, and they need someone to understand them. Like how I was angry when Daddy left. Nicole pulled her daughter close. Exactly like that. Zoe nodded against her mother's shoulder. Okay, we can help them. But Mommy? Yes, baby. Can we bring Mr. Hoppy? She held up her stuffed rabbit. Nicole kissed her forehead. Mr. Hoppy definitely comes with us. 2 days later, Nicole and Zoe moved into the Kang penthouse. Their room was bigger than their entire previous apartment. It had 2 beds, a window overlooking the city, and a bathroom that didn't have mold in the corners. Zoe stood in the middle of the space, clutching Mr. Hoppy, eyes wide. Mommy, are we rich now? No, baby. We're just very lucky. The twins met Zoe at breakfast the next morning, and Nicole watched carefully. Sua and Seoa stared at this new girl with a different face and uncertain smile. Zoe stared back, holding Mr. Hoppy like a shield. Then Zoe did something Nicole hadn't expected. She bowed slightly and said in careful practiced Korean, 안녕하세요, 저는 조이예요. Hello, I'm Zoe. Both twins' faces transformed. Neo 한국말 할 줄 알아? Seoa asked. Do you speak Korean? 조금요, Zoe said, holding her fingers close together. A little bit. 우리 엄마가 가르쳐줬어요. My mom taught me. Sua stood up and walked over to Zoe. She studied her seriously. 우리 엄마는 하늘나라에 있어, she said quietly. Our mom is in heaven. Zoe nodded. 우리 아빠는 떠났어요. My dad left. It wasn't the same, but it was a loss. And somehow, these 3 little girls recognized it in each other. By lunch, they were inseparable. Seoa was teaching Zoe a Korean hand game. Sua was showing them their favorite hiding spot behind the couch. Zoe was teaching them both how to make Mr. Hoppy talk in a silly voice. Nicole watched from the kitchen, throat tight. Her daughter had just given the twins something they desperately needed, a friend who understood what it meant to have a parent-shaped hole in your life. Jae-won came home early that afternoon and stopped dead in the living room doorway. His daughters were laughing. Actually laughing. Playing a game with Zoe and Nicole. No screaming, no destruction, just children being children. Is this real? He asked quietly, standing beside Nicole. It's real. They haven't laughed since... He stopped. Since before. Nicole glanced at him. His expression was unreadable, but his hands were shaking. You're allowed to feel hope, she said softly, even if it's terrifying. He looked at her. What if it doesn't last? What if they relapse? What if I leave? She finished. I signed a contract. I'm not going anywhere. People break contracts. Not when 3 little girls are depending on them. Something in his face cracked. Just slightly, like he'd been holding his breath for 18 months and was finally allowing himself to exhale. The breakthrough came a week later. Nicole was reading bedtime stories to all 3 girls in the twins' room. Zoe was already half asleep, but Sua and Seoa were wide awake, listening to a story in Korean about a moon rabbit. Suddenly, Sua interrupted. Nicoleoni? Nicole responded. Yes? 우리 엄마 얘기해줘도 돼요? Can you tell us about our mom? Nicole's heart stopped. She glanced toward the doorway and saw Jae-won standing there. She hadn't known he was listening. He looked terrified. Nicole looked back at the twins. I didn't know your Umma, she said gently in Korean. But your Appa did. Maybe he should tell you. Both girls turned toward the doorway. Jae-won stood frozen. Abba, Seoa whispered. Daddy, Yoma 얘기해줘요. Tell us about Mom. He looked like a man being asked to jump off a cliff. Nicole stood up slowly. I'll give you privacy. Stay, he said quickly. In English. Then switching to Korean. Jabal, please. He came into the room and sat on the edge of Sua's bed. Both twins immediately crawled over to him, hesitant, like they weren't sure he'd hold them. He wrapped his arms around them, and Nicole saw his hands shaking. Yomanen, he started, voice rough. Mom was... Yomanen 세상에서 제일 예쁜 노래를 불렀어. Mom sang the most beautiful songs in the world. Sua's breath hitched. 기억나요, 아빠? Do you remember, Daddy? 매일 기억해? I remember every day. He pulled them closer. 엄마는 너희를 세상에서 제일 사랑했어. 아침에 눈 뜨는 순간부터 밤에 잠들 때까지. Mom loved you more than anything in the world, from the moment you woke up until you fell asleep at night. Seoa started crying. Yoma bogo sipioyo. I miss her. Nado, Jae-won's voice broke. Me too. Mail bogo sipio. I miss her every day. Both twins were sobbing now, 18 months of grief that had been locked away because Daddy couldn't talk about it, and everyone spoke English, and home didn't feel like home anymore. It all came pouring out. Jae-won held his daughters and cried with them. Nicole watched from the corner, tears streaming down her own face, as this family finally allowed themselves to grieve together. Zoe climbed into Nicole's lap. Are they going to be okay, Mommy? She whispered. Yes, baby, Nicole said. They're going to be okay now. After the twins finally fell asleep, Nicole found Jae-won standing in the kitchen. His eyes were red. His shirt was wrinkled from 2 little girls clinging to him. He looked wrecked. He looked relieved. Thank you, he said quietly in Korean. For what? For making me talk about her. I thought if I didn't mention her, they'd forget the pain. But I was just teaching them that grief wasn't allowed. Grief is always allowed, Nicole said. It's just love with nowhere to go. He stared at her. Did you read that somewhere? No. I learned it when my husband left, and Zoe asked me why she wasn't enough to make him stay. His expression shifted. What did you tell her? I told her that sometimes adults are broken in ways children can't fix, and that his leaving had nothing to do with how extraordinary she is. Do you believe that? Most days. He was quiet for a moment. Then, my wife died because I wasn't home. I was at the office chasing a deadline that didn't matter. If I'd been here, you couldn't have stopped an aneurysm, Nicole interrupted gently. You couldn't have known. I should have been here. You're here now. That's what matters. He looked at her with something between gratitude and devastation. How did you get so wise about grief? By drowning in it for 2 years, until I learned to float. The next few weeks settled into a rhythm. Nicole worked with the twins every day, slowly reintroducing Korean throughout the house, reading Korean picture books, singing Korean lullabies, cooking Korean food that smelled like comfort and memory. The change in Sua and Seoa was remarkable. The violence stopped. The screaming faded. They still had hard days, still had moments of grief-fueled chaos, but now they had language for it. Now they could say, "I'm sad today," instead of throwing blocks. Now they could say, "I miss Uma," instead of ripping books. And Jae-won started coming home earlier, started having dinner with them, started reading bedtime stories in Korean, even though his pronunciation was rusty, started being a father instead of just a provider. Nicole watched the family heal and felt something dangerous growing in her chest, something that felt like hope, something that felt like home, something that felt like maybe she was healing too. Then, everything changed. Nicole was at the twins' international school for a parent-teacher conference when she saw her. A woman across the courtyard, expensive clothes, perfect hair, watching Sua and Seoa on the playground with an intensity that made Nicole's instincts scream. When the woman noticed Nicole looking, she smiled. Cold, calculated. She walked over. "You must be the new nanny," she said in English with a Korean accent. "I'm Jessica Yoon, an old friend of the family." Something about the way she said friend felt like a lie. "Nicole Patterson. I'm the twins' caregiver." "Caregiver," Jessica repeated. "How lovely. Though I heard the position has been quite difficult to fill." "The girls are doing well now." "I'm sure they are. You speak Korean, I hear. How convenient." There was an edge to her voice. "Though I wonder if Jae-won mentioned that he and I have been discussing reuniting. For the girls' sake, of course. They need a mother figure. A permanent one." Nicole's blood went cold. "I wasn't aware." "Of course you weren't. Your staff." Jessica's smile didn't reach her eyes. "But don't get too comfortable. Jae-won and I have history. We'll have a future too." She walked away, leaving Nicole standing in the courtyard, stomach churning. That evening, Nicole didn't mention the encounter. She made dinner, helped with homework, and played with all 3 girls until bedtime. Normal. Everything needed to stay normal. But after the children were asleep, Jae-won found her in the kitchen. "Jessica contacted you." It wasn't a question. Nicole turned. She introduced herself at the school. "What did she say?" "That you and she are discussing reuniting. For the girls." His jaw tightened. "She's lying." "Is she?" Nicole asked quietly. "Because if you're pursuing something with her, I need to know. For the girls' sake. They can't handle another disruption." "I'm not pursuing anything with Jessica," he said firmly. "She was my wife's friend. After Hannah died, Jessica suggested we might—" He stopped. "She thought the twins needed a mother. I thought maybe she was right. I tried. It lasted 2 weeks before I realized it was a mistake." "What kind of mistake?" "The kind where she wanted to erase Hannah, remove all the photos, get rid of her belongings, make the girls forget. She said they needed to move on." Nicole's anger flared. They were 3 years old. "I know, I ended it. She didn't take it well." "And now she's back," Nicole said. "Now she's back," he confirmed, looking exhausted. probably because she heard the twins are doing better. She'll think she can take credit, or that I'm vulnerable enough to try again. Are you? The question hung between them. Jae-won looked at her. Really looked. No, because what they needed wasn't a replacement mother. What they needed was someone who understood that healing doesn't mean forgetting. Nicole's heart was beating too fast. I should check on the girls. Nicole. He stepped closer. Stay. Please. Don't let Jessica scare you away. I'm not scared of her, Nicole said. I'm scared of... She stopped. She couldn't finish that sentence. Couldn't admit that she was scared of how much this family was starting to mean to her. How much he was starting to mean to her. I know, he said softly. And from the look in his eyes, he did know. He felt it too. If you believe families are built by choice, not just biology, subscribe to Heart Speaks Stories right now. Only people who think love can only look one way won't hit that button. Comment chosen family if you believe people can heal together. Because what came next would test everything they'd built. And Jessica Yoon wasn't finished trying to take it apart. Jessica's interference started small. A text message to Jae-won about catching up over dinner. An expensive gift delivered to the penthouse for the twins, dolls they never asked for and didn't want. Then she started showing up. At the school pickup. At the park, where Nicole took the girls on weekends. Always perfectly dressed, always with that calculated smile, always watching. One afternoon, Nicole was at the playground with all three girls when Jessica appeared. What a lovely surprise, she said, sitting on the bench beside Nicole, uninvited. Playing happy family, I see. Nicole kept her eyes on the girls. The children are playing. I'm supervising. Of course, that's your job, isn't it? Supervising. Jessica watched Sua and Seoa on the swings. They look so much like Hana. It must be hard for Jae-won, seeing her face every day in them. He loves them. They're not painful reminders. They're his daughters. But love isn't always enough, is it? Sometimes children need stability, a real family structure, not just hired help, no matter how dedicated. Nicole turned to face her. What exactly are you trying to say? I'm saying that I can give those girls what they really need. A mother. Permanence. Not someone who could leave the moment a better job comes along. I'm not leaving. Everyone says that, Jessica said. Until they do. 23 nannies before you, remember? What makes you so different? I asked them what they needed, Nicole said quietly, instead of telling them what I thought they should want. Jessica's expression hardened. You're very confident for someone who's been here less than 2 months, but confidence isn't the same as belonging. You're not family, Nicole. You're an employee. Mommy, Zoe's voice cut through the tension. Sua wants to show you something. Nicole stood up. Excuse me. As she walked away, she felt Jessica's eyes boring into her back. That night, Nicole couldn't sleep. She lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, while Zoe slept peacefully beside her. Jessica's words circled her mind like vultures. You're an employee, not family, just someone who could leave. She thought about the last 2 months, about how Sua and Seoa had transformed from violent, grieving children into girls who laughed and played and said I love you in Korean before bed. About how Zoe had blossomed with stability, making friends at her new school, no longer asking every morning if they'd have to move again. About how Jae-won had started smiling, actually smiling. About the way he looked at her sometimes when he thought she wasn't watching. She was falling in love with this family, and that terrified her, because Jessica was right about one thing. Nicole was an employee. No matter how much it felt like more, she could be dismissed. replaced. And where would that leave her? And Zoe, back in a tiny apartment with eviction notices, she couldn't let herself forget that. The crisis came 2 weeks later. Nicole was making breakfast when her phone rang. Unknown number. She answered. "Ms. Patterson?" A man's voice, formal. "This is Attorney Kim from Seoul Immigration Services. We need to discuss your visa status." Her blood turned to ice. "My visa is valid for another 8 months. There's been a complaint filed, an anonymous report suggesting you're working outside the terms of your visa. We'll need you to come in for an interview next week." A complaint? From who? Anonymous complaints are confidential, but we take them seriously. If the allegations are substantiated, your visa could be revoked. The call ended. Nicole stood in the kitchen, hand shaking. Phone still pressed to her ear. Anonymous complaint. Right after Jessica's warnings. This wasn't a coincidence. "Everything okay?" Jae-won's voice made her jump. He was standing in the doorway, already dressed for work, concerned about creasing his forehead. Nicole's voice cracked. "Immigration called. Someone filed a complaint about my visa status." His expression went dark. "Jessica, you don't know that." "I know exactly that," he said, voice hard. "She did the same thing to Hana's mother when she tried to visit from Busan. Manufactured a complaint to create problems." "Why would she do this?" "Because she wants you gone," Jae-won said. "She thinks if you leave, I'll be desperate enough to accept her help, to let her step into the role she thinks she deserves." Nicole felt sick. "If they revoke my visa, Zoe and I have to leave Korea. We have nowhere to go. My ex-husband's in the States, and he's made it clear we're not his problem." "You're not going anywhere," Jae-won said firmly. "I'll call my lawyers. We'll fight this." Fighting immigration complaints takes months, maybe years. The girls can't. She stopped, took a breath. They can't handle another disruption. Not now. Not when they're finally stable. "Then we don't let it become a disruption," he said. He stepped closer. "There's a way to make this go away. Permanently." Nicole looked up. "What are you talking about?" "Marriage," he said. "If we're married, your visa status is no longer an issue. Immigration can't touch you. Jessica can't manipulate the system. You and Zoe have permanent legal protection." Nicole's heart stopped. "You can't be serious." "I'm completely serious." "Jae-won, marriage isn't a legal strategy." "It's not just a strategy," he interrupted. "It's acknowledging what's already true." She stared at him. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying my daughters love you. Zoe is thriving here. You've given us something I didn't think we'd ever have again. Peace, stability, hope." He paused. "I'm saying I don't want this to be temporary. Any of it." Nicole's throat was tight. "This is insane. We barely know each other. You can't propose marriage as a solution to an immigration problem." "I'm not proposing marriage as a solution," he said quietly. "I'm proposing marriage because I want you to stay. Because somewhere in the last 2 months, this stopped being about childcare and started being about family." "You're grieving," Nicole said. "You're not thinking clearly. You're grateful because I helped your daughters. But that's not—" "Don't tell me what I'm feeling," he cut her off. "I know the difference between gratitude and—" He stopped. "I know what I'm asking, and I know it's fast. But I also know that I don't want to wake up one morning and find out you've been deported because I didn't act." Nicole felt tears burning. The girls would be devastated if you left," he said. "But this isn't just for them. This is for us. All of us. You, me, Zoe, Sua, Seoa. We're already a family. Let's make it official." Before she could respond, Small footsteps padded into the kitchen. All three girls stood in the doorway in their pajamas. Sua rubbed her eyes. Why uri yomarang abaga saweoyo? Why are our mum and dad fighting? Nicole's breath caught. Our mum. Sioa looked worried. Nicole ioni iodigayo. Is Nicole uni going somewhere? Naanga, Nicole said automatically in Korean. I'm not going. But her voice shook. Zoe walked over and took her mother's hand. Mummy, are we leaving? No, baby. Good, Zoe said firmly. Because this is our home now, and they're our family. Right? 3 little girls, 3 pairs of eyes. All of them looked at Nicole like she held their entire world in her hands. She looked at Jae-won, at this man who was offering her safety, stability, and something that terrified her more than deportation, the possibility of actually belonging somewhere. Okay, she whispered. Okay. Okay, she said louder, but we do this right. Not just paperwork. If we're going to be a family, we do it honestly. All of it. Something shifted in his expression. Relief. Hope. Honestly, he agreed. Sua squealed. Abarang Nicole ioniga gyolanheo? Daddy and Nicole Uni are getting married? Jung, Jae-won said, not taking his eyes off Nicole. Yes. Both twins started jumping up and down. Sioa grabbed Zoe's hands. Uri jinja jamega denangoya. We're becoming real sisters. Zoe looked at her mother. Really, Mummy? Really, really? Really, really? Nicole said, and started crying. Happy tears this time. Overwhelmed tears. Terrified tears. But also hopeful ones. The wedding happened fast. 2 weeks later, at a small courthouse ceremony, with just the 3 girls and Mrs. Lim as witnesses. Nicole wore a simple white dress. Jae-won wore a dark suit. The girls wore matching yellow dresses and held flowers. When the officiant asked if they had taken each other, Nicole looked at this man she'd known for less than 3 months and felt something click into place. I do, she said in Korean. Nado, he answered. Me too. They signed the papers, legally, officially, and permanently binding their lives together. As they walked out of the courthouse, Sua and Seoa held Nicole's hands. Ije uri jinja ommaeo? Seoa asked. Are you really our mum now? Nicole crouched down. Neo higa wionamyan. If you want me to be. Both girls threw their arms around her. Nay. Jinja Oma. Yes, real mom. That night, after the girls were asleep, Nicole and Jae-won stood in the kitchen, married. Surreal. This is crazy, Nicole said. Completely crazy, he agreed. I married a man I barely know to solve an immigration problem. I married a woman who speaks to my children in their mother's language because no one else thought to try. He stepped closer. This started as practicality. But Nicole, I meant what I said. I want this to be real. It is real, she said quietly. That's what scares me. Why? Because I lost everything once. My marriage, my stability, my sense of safety. I can't. Her voice broke. I can't do that again. He took her hand. You won't have to. I'm not your ex-husband. I don't disappear. I don't abandon. When I commit to something, I stay. Even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. She looked at their joined hands, at the ring on her finger that they'd picked out together. Simple gold bands. At this life that had materialized out of desperation and somehow transformed into possibility. Jessica's going to lose her mind, Nicole said. Jae-won smiled. Actual smile. I'm counting on it. The news reached Jessica within 24 hours. She showed up at the penthouse unannounced, furious. You married the nanny, she hissed at Jae-won in the entryway. I married my wife, he corrected. Nicole is my wife. the mother of my children, and you're no longer welcome in this home. This is insane. You've known her for what, 2 months? This is clearly a visa scam. This is clearly none of your business, Nicole said, appearing from the living room. And if you're the one who filed that immigration complaint, you should know it's been dismissed. Permanently. Jessica's face went red. You have no idea what you're doing. Those girls need more than some desperate foreigner playing house. Those girls need someone who loves them, Nicole interrupted. Someone who doesn't want to erase their mother. Someone who sees them as children, not obstacles or projects. That's what they have. That's what they'll keep having. Jae-won, Jessica turned to him. You can't seriously think this will work. She's using you. She saved us, he said simply. My daughters were destroying themselves with grief. I was drowning in guilt. Nicole gave us a way forward. So yes, this will work, because we're choosing to make it work. Jessica looked between them, at their unified front, at the life she'd tried to manipulate herself into and failed to claim. You'll regret this, she said, when she leaves, when this falls apart, when those girls' hearts break again. You'll remember I warned you. She left. The door closed. Nicole let out a breath she'd been holding. That was terrifying. You were incredible, Jae-won said. I was shaking. So was I. He put his arm around her shoulders. Tentative. Testing. She leaned into him. Also tentative. Also testing. They stood there, two people who'd made a wild leap into marriage, holding each other up. We're really doing this, Nicole said. We're really doing this, he confirmed. From the hallway, 3 little girls peeked around the corner, watching their parents, smiling. If you believe love doesn't have a timeline, that families can form in unexpected ways, subscribe to Heart Speaks Stories right now. Only people who think everything has to be traditional and slow won't hit that button. Comment, love has no rules if you believe people can build something real out of chaos. Because what came next would test this new family in ways none of them expected, but they'd face it together. And that made all the difference. Please hit the subscribe button for more interesting stories like this.